All right, so you can see that even after all of the carving, this still sliced very well. So it seems as though the edge retention is excellent. I mean, generally speaking, this feels still very sharp. As I do the little nail test, you'll see right on the belly there, it seems to have rolled over just a little bit. But then as I get into the sort of flat part of the blade here, that is definitely still razor sharp. So a little bit of that carving and twisting definitely got to the edge just a little bit. You can see it just slides a little bit on my nail there, but it is still definitely sharp. Now, one thing worth noting is this did seem to patina just a little bit, so it started to patina a little bit there from, the food. I don't know if it's just stained. I mean, I washed this off with some dish soap. It could be a little bit stained, but I feel as though it's starting to patina a little bit there on the steel. All right, so now basically at this point, I am ready to burn in this kit. So if I'm going to use this as the spindle, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to protect myself by closing this in the sheath. So you'll see now the blade is protected and I can get on the bow drill hole here. So that's nice, where if I'm using this to bear down, I should be able to get on that. Now I can tell you this is just a little bit awkward here. It would almost be nice if the inside of the sheath here was thinned out to just about the width of the handle, so I could kind of get on there and hold on a little bit better. I may find that I can't use the sheath. That's just a little bit awkward, but I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens and see if I can apply the proper pressure while using the knife as a spindle and as a bearing block. Oh man, I don't even know how that just happened, but the knife just fell out of the sheath. Oh, that sucks. What the hell did I do? I'll have to review the tape. Did that pull out? What happened there? I don't honestly even know how that could have happened. Wasn't this in? Did I have this snapped in? Oh my gosh. Look at that. That just comes right out of there. So I just totally ditched the knife by not being careful, and this flew right out. So that retention definitely does not work. I mean, that fell right out and just dropped right onto the ground. So I'm lucky I didn't get cut, but I definitely damaged the edge of the knife. I mean, this isn't ridiculously major damage, but the edge definitely has some chips in it now. I mean, again, not crazy, but you'll see right in the belly that it's kind of chipped. It looks worse on this side. But oh man, so that sheath definitely needs a little work on the retention there. That's a shame, and I don't do stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if I've ever dropped a knife. I certainly can't say that now. The tip is fine. It's just the belly there. I mean, I can clean that up. I think ceramic rods and a strop should fix that. I'm glad it's just a tiny little chip. And hey, I mean, if anything, we're testing the heat treat. So the edge is reasonable. I mean, a little bit of chipping there, but that was just a bummer. What a dope. So basically at this point, I need to get myself fairly well prepared to do this. And at this point too, like I mentioned, I mean, I'm really just burning this in for now. So I think, let's see. I think the tension on this should be just about right. But again, I don't do this all the time. So let's see what happens. I can already smell it. Whoa. Alright, so that popped out. It's the top that's burning. So that is bearing right on the handle and burning in there, which is probably okay, but the base isn't burning yet. So what was that? Let's do this again. Oh, whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Alright. So that is yanking on the knife and definitely pulled it out. Now, I moved my hand soon enough that it didn't get me. But because this is not firm in the sheath, then if you're trying to hold on to it, to use this as a bearing block, what that means is you need to pinch somewhere in here, but you can't hold it tight enough, and it leaves your hand subject to this area, and any sort of lateral movement wants to yank on this, and we already know the retention doesn't work. So this to me is definitely dodgy. Now again, it didn't get me, but I could totally see how it would. So I cannot use this with the sheath and trust it. And so now I have to do it with the blade exposed, which is equally dodgy, but I'm willing to try. So hell, let's give this a shot and see what happens. Okay, so another attempt at this. Oh, this is way better already, I can tell you that, without the sheath. So, nice. I mean, that's real good sign. So, I mean, this is working beautifully. That's starting to burn in. I'm going to burn this in just a little bit more and then cut my notches. So that's a very good sign. This is running down on me. I'm not sure how to combat that. So, all right, that's a good step. So now, I have that fairly well burnt in. Could probably go a little more, I don't really know, but I'm going with it. So now, I'm gonna cut my V-notch. I gotta go get myself something to put beneath this in case I happen to make an ember, a little coal, and get myself some tinder, and hopefully I can get something at least started. So again, I'm not going to make a complete fire here. I'm just simulating it to see if that bow drill bearing block works. Okay. So now I have a notch. Hope that's about right. So as this burns, it's going to drop a little ember right there. Now it's just a bit windy today, which may or may not matter, but I'm hoping I can at least get a little coal here, transfer it to some tinder, and simulate starting a fire. So let's do that. Alright, so here I'm basically simulating a nest. Now I don't have a ton in the way of tinder, and it's not quite the right spot for me to get any more, but I have some fairly dry, loose bark here. I have some jute twine, which again, just adding a little substance here, And then I'm fluffing out this Tinder Quick, and I'm hoping if I can get myself a nice coal built up, I can transfer it to this and start this bundle. So let's see what happens. I'm very curious. I have no idea what's going to happen, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to try and to do it. So here we go. I mean, I'm getting heat, and I'm getting some smoke, but so far, no ember, and that's definitely quite warm, so a bit of friction there. So at this point, it's actually a couple days later. I ran out of time that first day as I was trying to get this bow drill fire started. So I'm gonna stay at it today, hopefully have some success. Now my setup's exactly the same. I'm just gonna stay the course. Only this time, instead of bearing down on the hard patio, I think what I'm gonna do is kind of focus more on the grass, and hopefully that'll help keep everything secure. So, you know what, live and learn and try these things out and hope for the best. So let's see if I can get this started today. All right, so fire. All right. So yeah, that did it. Killer. All right, so there you go, guys. A successful bow drill fire. Now, as I mentioned, I don't do bow drill fires or friction fires all that often, so to be able to put together this kit and combine this entire thing using this Hydra Knives open field was definitely sweet. Now, I have to say that generally speaking, I very much like this knife. I think it's comfortable in the hands. It performed very well. I just had the problem with the sheath, and it's a shame because I love the overall sheath design. I like the fact that it has loops for a fire steel holder, has a nice belt loop, has quality construction overall, MOLLE compatible on the back. There's a lot of good things going for it, but the lack of retention is definitely a liability. I almost found myself cut on a couple occasions. Once when I actually dropped the knife, and a second time when I was trying to bear down and use this as my bearing block. Unfortunately, that just was not going to work. So if your intention is to use this for anything other than a vertical carry in sort of a very controlled situation, I'd have to say it definitely needs a little bit of a refinement in the overall retention. But generally speaking, a good quality package. I like the knife. I've actually touched it up a little bit to try to fix the edge after I unfortunately damaged it, but that's not the knife's fault. The sheath, a little suspect. The knife was great. So a good quality offering from Hydra Knives. I have to say, generally speaking with this knife, I am very impressed. All right, so now after a successful bow drill fire, let's take a look at this open field and just a little final detail. So as you saw, unfortunately, I did drop the knife. Now at this point, the edge I have touched up just a little bit, but there is a little bit of permanent damage and chipping on the edge. Now I would really have to sharpen this, probably with a diamond or something like that. I really don't like to do that. I'd rather just kind of work through it at this point and continue to feel it out and maybe hone and refine the edge with some ceramic rods for a while. See if it'll take some of the curse out of that. But again, not the knife's fault. Now, generally speaking, I do greatly like this. I think the handle feels good in the hands. It worked out well for me. And you will notice that that bow drill divot for me kind of lands right where my ring finger wants to be, but it doesn't bother me. I don't find it was a hindrance to my overall capability or performance. It didn't leave any hot spots and didn't bother me at all. And even after all that carving, this spot down here that I thought may lead to a hot spot really didn't. I think it could be rounded out just a touch, but it's not a big deal. It was definitely a nice sized handle and fit great in my hands. And finally, after a successful bow drill fire, if you look at that divot, you can see there was definitely a little bit of friction in there, a little bit of a hot spot burning on the inside there. Now, I don't think it's really causing any sort of damage. You can tell that my spindle definitely was not necessarily riding right in the bearings, but for the most part, it definitely worked. Now, like most things, setup is critical, and if you noticed, really, my most recent and successful try at the bow drill fire was a result of bearing straight in the grass. There was a lot less movement than on the pavement, or I should say the blocks. That patio block definitely created a lot of movement in my setup. So then to sort of secure things by going into the grass made a huge difference. It was more comfortable for me, and I was able to bear more properly down on the knife to keep it nice and straight and secure while I used it as a bearing block for the spindle. So all things considered, this definitely worked. I feel much better about doing this with my left hand while I was using my setup with the knife kind of naked versus in the sheath. As I mentioned, that was a definite liability. So a little bit of work by Hydra Knives to finalize this setup to make a complete and I would say efficient kit. It needs to be a little bit more thought through in terms of the retention, but generally speaking, I think the sheath is on the right track. I like the overall style. This is kind of a firm, I'd say maybe thermoplastic or something on the inside, but then the ballistics nylon and a good durable sheath, fairly well constructed, just has a little bit of an issue in terms of the retention. So my final verdict on this Hydra Knives open field, definitely a nice style, great shape, good weight, stout and capable knife, good overall steel and heat treat from what I can tell. I love the handle scales. I think they're beautiful. They have a wonderful pop. Overall, this is a nice package with a good intended use. I think it's a quality knife and something worth keeping an eye on. So at this point, I'd like to say thank you very much to the people at Hydra Knives who, again, have provided this product for a preliminary review. At the time of this video, this is still in a prototype fashion, so this has not yet gone to full production. It'll be interesting to see what Hydra Knives does with the information provided, but no matter what, I can tell you this is going to be a wonderful performer and a knife that I greatly enjoy. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.